The sky above the world of travel burned red. For weeks, the swarm had fallen upon the planet like a tide of darkness. They came without warning, without demands, without mercy. Their ships rained fire from orbit, and their beasts poured through. The streets they did not conquer. They consumed in the capital city. Towers that once reached for the stars now lay broken and smoking. The proud halls of the Travel Council trembled as explosions shook the earth. Outside the walls, alien defenders screamed as they tradned, failed to hold back the endless tide. Inside, the council gathered. Their faces were pale, their voices heavy with fear. Chancellor Vera slammed her hand on the table. We cannot hold them. Our armies are broken, our fleets destroyed. If no one helps us, our world is lost. Her words echoed through the chamber. Some councillors lowered their eyes, unable to answer. Others whispered in despair. Everyone knew the truth. The swarm could not be stopped by the travel alone. At last, one elder spoke, his voice weak. Send the call to every empire, to every council. Beg them, pay them, promise them anything. We only ask for survival. The council agreed. Across the galaxy, the signal spread, carried on every channel, translated into every language. It was a desperate cry from a dying world. This is the world of travel. We are under attack. Our fleets are gone. Our people are dying. Please, we beg for aid. Days passed. The call echoed again and again. Every starport, every trading hub, every neutral station carried it. Billions of eyes and ears heard it, and billions turned away. The Dominion received the message. Their admirals read it with cold eyes. We cannot risk our fleets, they said. Better travel burns than us. The Krath Legion received it. Their warlords laughed. Why waste warriors on a dying world? Let the swarm feed. The Council of Stars received it. They calculated, measured, and dismissed it. The cost is too great, they decided. It is not our concern. Across the galaxy, every empire heard the call, and every empire ignored it. Back on travel, hope died. Families gathered in silence, holding each other as the sky turned black with enemy ships. Soldiers fought with empty eyes, knowing they could not win. Even the councillors sat in despair, their voices broken. They will not come, one whispered. The galaxy has left us to die. The people waited for the end. Then something changed. In the communications chamber, a young technician froze. At his console, his eyes widened as a new signal flashed across his screen. Chancellor, he called, his voice shaking. We have a reply. The council chamber stirred. Councillors leaned forward, hope flickering faintly in their eyes. From who? Which empire? The technician swallowed. Not an empire. A world, small, far on the edge, Earth. Murmurs filled the chamber. Some laughed bitterly. Earth, the humans. They are nothing, a minor species. What can they do? Perhaps it is a trick, another said. Perhaps the swarm sends false hope. But the technician shook his head. No, the signal is real. Listen, he pressed a key. The words filled the chamber. This is Earth Command. Travel, we hear your call. We are coming. Silence followed. The councillors stared at one another, stunned. The message was short, simple, but real. Some scoffed. One world cannot save us. The empires turned away, and they are stronger. What chance do humans have? Chancellor Vera did not scoff. Her eyes narrowed, her voice low. The empires turned away, yes, but humanity did not. The people of travel were divided. Some refused to hope, afraid of being broken again. Others clung to the message like fire in the dark. But all of them, even the doubters, looked to the skies. Outside the walls, the swarm gathered for its next assault. Their beasts roared, their ships blotted out the sun. The ground shook under the weight of their numbers. The defenders braced for the final stand, and then the stars moved at the edge of the system. A light appeared, scanners lit. Up with warnings, a single ship had entered the battlefield. Not Dominion, not Krath, not the Council, human. The Council chamber fell silent. Once more, as the readings confirmed it, the travel people raised their eyes to the heavens, and in the quiet before the storm, the words of the message echoed again. This is Earth Command. We are coming. The ship entered orbit above travel like a shadow made of steel. It was not sleek like the ships of the Veiled Dominion, nor graceful like the Council of Stars. It did not shine with polished armor or glow with banners of pride. Instead, it was dark, heavy, scarred. Its hull carried burns from old battles, and its engines roared with raw, unrefined power. The people of travel gathered in the ruined streets, staring upward in disbelief. This was no fleet, no armada, only a single human warship. In the council chamber, murmurs spread like fire. Only one. A counselor whispered, "They mock us." Another spat. "Perhaps they came only to watch us die." But Chancellor Vera raised her hand. Her eyes remained locked on the display showing the massive vessel. "Wait," she said softly. "Do not judge yet." Moments later, the ship spoke. "This is Captain Elias of the UN's Resolute. We received your call. We are here to fight." The voice was steady, calm, and without arrogance. It carried a weight that silenced the chamber. From the ship's belly, a ramp opened, and a group of humans descended to the surface. They were tall, broad-shouldered, wearing armor that looked scarred and practical, built for survival rather than display. Their helmets gleamed faintly in the firelight of the burning city. The travel soldiers who had survived weeks of hopeless war stared in silence. These strangers moved with discipline, each step measured, each glance sharp. Their weapons were unlike anything the travel had seen, strange rifles that hummed with energy, blades that seemed forged for close battle. At the front walked Captain Elias. His face was marked with scars, his eyes cold yet steady. When he spoke, his voice carried through the square like iron. "We are not here to bargain. We are not here for tribute. We are here because no one else came. If you wish to survive, stand with us. If not, then step aside." The travel counselors, watching through the screens, exchanged uneasy glances. Some whispered arrogance. Others said madness. But the soldiers on the walls saw something else. These humans carried themselves not like conquerors, but like survivors, beings who had stared death in the face and refused to fall. A travel general approached, his voice sharp with doubt. "You are few. The swarm is many. Our fleets fell. What can you do?" Elias met his gaze without flinching. "We can do what we always do. We fight, and we do not stop." The words echoed across the city. Some laughed bitterly. Others trembled with new hope. That night, the humans worked beside the travel defenders. They did not rest. They set up strange devices around the city towers that hummed with energy, mines buried in the ground, turrets that moved on their own. The aliens watched with wide eyes, not understanding the technology but sensing its power. The soldiers drilled together. Human instructors barked orders, teaching the travel how to hold lines, how to fight with discipline, how to aim with purpose. The aliens struggled at first, but the humans did not mock them. They corrected, they pushed, they demanded. "Stand firm," one human soldier said, his voice like stone. "The swarm will break you only if you let it." In the council chamber, doubts remained. "They are reckless," a counselor said. "They cannot win." But Chancellor Vera shook her head. "Look at their eyes. They are not reckless. They are ready." As dawn broke, the swarm returned. From the forests beyond the city walls, screeches filled the air. Thousands of beasts poured forward, their black carapaces glistening in the red sun. Warships of the swarm circled above, preparing to strike. From the sky, the travel soldiers trembled. Their weapons shook in their hands. The humans moved to the front lines. Captain Elias lifted his rifle. "Hold the walls," he ordered. "Do not break. We will stand." The swarm roared, charging across the plains like a sea of claws and teeth. The defenders braced for the end, and then the humans opened fire. Strange beams lanced out from there. Rifles cutting through the first wave of creatures. Mines hidden in the ground erupted, tearing the attackers apart in showers of fire. Turrets locked on and spat storms of bullets, ripping the air with thunder. The travel gasped. Their eyes widened as they saw the swarm falter. No fleet, no empire had made the beasts hesitate before. But these strangers, these humans, were holding them back. On the walls, soldiers began to shout with hope. They fired their own weapons. Steadier now, braver now. For the first time, they felt the battle could be won, and at the front. Elias fought like a wall of iron. He moved through the line, calm under fire, striking with deadly precision. His voice carried above the chaos. "Stand together. Do not break." The swarm's first wave shattered against the city's defenses. Smoke filled the air. Bodies of beasts lay broken across the plain. The travel stared in disbelief. They had begged the galaxy for help. The empires had abandoned them. But humanity had come. And as the swarm roared for a second assault, one truth spread across the defenders like fire. The humans were here to fight, and they would not stop. The sun rose red over travel, and with it came the swarm dot from the forests beyond the city walls. Their screeches tore through the morning air. Waves of black creatures poured forward, their claws tearing the earth, their eyes glowing with hunger. Above them, swarm ships circled like vultures, ready to rain fire from the sky. The defenders stood on the walls, their hands trembling on their weapons. They had seen this before, wave after wave that never stopped. Every time before, the walls had nearly fallen. Every time, their hope had thinned. But today was different. Today, the humans stood with them at the front. Captain Elias raised his rifle. His voice carried over the walls, calm but sharp. "Hold steady. They want fear. Do not give it to them. Stand." The travel soldiers glanced at the humans. These strangers did not tremble. They did not shout in panic. They stood like stone, their weapons ready, their faces set. The swarm roared, charging closer. "Fire." Ilias commanded. The battlefield erupted. Human rifles spat burning beams that cut through the front line of beasts. Mines buried in the ground detonated, throwing fire and shrapnel into the tide. Automated turrets tracked their targets with perfect aim, ripping the air with thunder. The swarm stumbled. Dozens of creatures fell, their bodies smoking in the dust. But more came. Always more. The travel fired too, their weapons shaky at first, but steadier as they saw the humans hold firm. For the first time in weeks, their shots were not lost in panic. The first wave crashed against the walls. Beasts clawed at stone, climbing with furious screeches. The defenders panicked, but the humans were already there. One soldier swung down with a blade, slicing through a climbing creature and sending it crashing to the ground. Another leapt into the swarm, planting a grenade that exploded in a burst of flame, taking the enemy with him. The travel gasped. They had never seen warriors fight like this. Humans fought as if death itself meant nothing. Elias moved along the line, calm in the chaos. His rifle struck with deadly precision, each shot hitting eyes, joints, and weak spots that travel had never noticed. His voice cut through the noise. Stand together, do not break. They fall like anything else. The swarm pressed harder. Larger beasts appeared, armored monsters with tusks and spiked hides. They slammed against the walls, shaking them with every blow. Bring the railgun online, Elias ordered. The human ship above responded. A thunderous shot cracked the sky. A glowing slug streaked downward, slamming into one of the massive beasts. The monster exploded in fire and ash, its remains scattering across the battlefield. The defenders cheered, their fear turning to fury. They fired faster now, shouting with hope. For the first time, the swarm's endless tide slowed, but the enemy was not finished. A swarm ship broke from the sky, diving low. Its cannons charged, ready to blast the walls apart. The travel screamed. Certain it was the end, the Resolute answered. From orbit, missiles streaked out, chasing the enemy craft like hunters. They struck its hull in flashes of light. The swarm ship exploded in a burst of fire, raining debris over the plain. The defenders shouted in triumph, yet still the swarm came. Wave after wave threw themselves forward, claws scraping, teeth gnashing. But the humans did not falter. They met the tide with steel and fire, each soldier fighting as if the weight of the galaxy rested on his shoulders. One human was dragged down by 3 beasts. The travel watched in horror as the creatures tore at him, but before they could finish, the soldier pulled a grenade from his belt. His last act was to pull the pin. The explosion took him and the monsters with it. The defenders stood frozen, shocked at such sacrifice. But Elias did not pause. He shouted, his voice like iron. He chose to stand. So will we. Hours passed. The battlefield became a sea of fire and corpses. The walls were scarred, the ground burned, but the line still held. The swarm's first great assault had failed. As the smoke cleared, the defenders stood in silence. They were bloodied, broken, but alive. For the first time, they had survived a full assault without retreat. The travel soldiers looked at the humans with new eyes. They no longer saw strangers, they saw saviors, warriors who fought not for glory, but simply to stand. Chancellor Vera watched from the council tower, her voice trembling. The empires abandoned us, yet humanity came, and now I believe we might endure. But even as she spoke, scouts rushed into the chamber, their faces pale. The swarm is regrouping, they reported. They are bringing something bigger, something we have never seen before. On the walls, Captain Elias tightened his grip on his rifle. His eyes stayed cold, his voice steady. Then let them come, he said. And the defenders braced for the next storm. The battlefield was quiet. For only a moment. Smoke drifted across the plains. The walls of the city shook from the last assault. The defenders stood breathing hard, their armor burned, their weapons hot in their hands. They had survived, but they knew it was not over. From the forest came new sounds, deep, heavy thuds that shook the ground. The swarm was regrouping. This time they were bringing monsters the defenders had never faced. Scouts returned to the council chamber, fear in their eyes. "The swarm has unleashed their war beasts," one said. "Creatures taller than towers, armored in black steel. They march at the center of the next wave." The councillors paled. "The walls cannot hold against such things," one whispered. But Chancellor Vera turned her eyes to the sky, where the human ship Resolute floated in silent orbit. Her voice was steady. "If humanity has more strength, now we will see it." On the walls, Captain Elias studied the horizon. He saw the ground shake with every step of the advancing monsters. He saw the endless tide of smaller beasts gathering around them. His face did not change. "We don't have hours," his officer said. "We barely have minutes." "Then minutes will do," Elias replied. The humans moved fast. Engineers rushed forward, placing strange charges along the ground. Soldiers checked their rifles, knives, and grenades. Heavy weapons were lifted into position, cannons and launchers the travel had never seen before. Elias climbed the wall, his voice carrying across the defenders. "The swarm believes they cannot be stopped. They believe fear is stronger than courage. But today they will learn." The travel soldiers, weary and broken, found themselves standing straighter at his words. For the first time, they felt not like prey, but like warriors. Then the swarm came. The horizon turned black with their numbers. Towering beasts marched forward, their tusks like spears, their bodies covered in plates of bone and steel. Behind them, flying creatures circled, screeching as they prepared to strike from above. The ground shook. The walls trembled. "Hold." Elias shouted. The swarm charged. Mines buried by the humans exploded first, tearing open the front ranks. Fire and smoke filled the air, but the massive beasts pushed through, unstoppable. "Now," Elias commanded. Railguns fired from the Resolute, their slugs smashing into the towering monsters. One beast fell, its chest torn open in fire. Another stumbled, but rose again, roaring. The humans on the walls unleashed their weapons. Rockets streaked out, striking the beasts in their joints. In their eyes, in every weak spot, beams from rifles cut through wings, sending flying creatures crashing from the sky. The swarm pressed harder, climbing the walls, smashing against the gates. The travel defenders screamed as claws reached for them. But side by side with the humans, they fought. One travel soldier saw a human leap from the wall onto a beast's back, stabbing again and again with a blade until the monster crashed to the ground. Another saw a pair of humans drag a wounded comrade behind cover, refusing to leave him even as enemies closed in. The swarm was fierce, but humanity was fiercer. Still, the battle was brutal. One war beast reached the gates, slamming them with its massive body, stone cracked. The defenders panicked. Elias's voice cut through the chaos. "Focus, fire." Dozens of weapons turned on the creature. Rockets, rifles, railguns, and grenades struck all at once. The beast staggered, roared, and finally collapsed, shaking the earth as it fell. The defenders roared in triumph. For the first time, the great monsters had been brought down, but the battle was not yet won. The swarm shifted, pulling back slightly, regrouping in the distance. Their screeches echoed across the plains, filled with rage. The travel soldiers stood on the walls, bloodied and exhausted. Some laughed with relief, others wept with joy. For the first time, they believed survival was possible. In the council chamber, the leaders watched the battle unfold. One counselor whispered, "No empire answered us," but the humans came, and they turned despair into hope. Chancellor Vera's eyes were sharp. "Hope is their weapon," she said, "and it is stronger than fear." On the walls, Elias stood, silent, watching the swarm retreat into the smoke. His soldiers gathered around him, tired but unbroken. "They'll come again," his officer said. Elias nodded. "They always do." He looked at the defenders, at the people who had once waited only for death. Now they stood straighter, their eyes alive with fire. "They are learning," Elias said quietly, "and when they learn, they will never kneel." Again, the swarm was not gone. They would return with new fury, greater numbers, and deeper hate. But the people of travel had seen something new. They had seen what it meant to fight beside humanity, and the galaxy itself would soon learn the same. The battlefield lay in ruins. Smoke curled across the plains. The bodies of swarm beasts covered the ground, their black shells broken and burning. The walls of travel were cracked and scarred, but they still stood, and on those walls the defenders stood as well bloodied, exhausted, yet alive, for the first time in living memory. The swarm had been forced to retreat. The people of travel stared out into the distance, waiting for another wave, but none came. The swarm had pulled back into the forests, leaving only silence behind. In that silence, hope returned. On the council tower, Chancellor Vera spoke softly, her voice trembling. "We called to the galaxy. No empire came, only the humans, her." Councillors lowered their heads. None could deny the truth. They had begged, they had pleaded, and the empires had turned their backs. Only Earth had answered. Down in the city square, the people gathered. Families that had prepared for death now clung to one another, weeping in relief. Soldiers who had believed the end was certain now shouted in triumph, and at the center of it all stood the humans. They did not cheer, they did not boast. They simply stood, weapons still in their hands, eyes scanning the horizon as if the battle had not yet ended. Captain Elias walked to the front of the square. His armor was cracked, his face streaked with ash and blood. Yet he stood tall, his voice steady as he addressed both the travel and the open channels of the galaxy. "We came because no one else would. You begged for help, and the empires ignored you. But humanity does not ignore those who stand alone. We know what it means to be abandoned. We know what it means to fight with nothing but will." The words carried through the crowd. The travel listened in silence, their eyes wide. Across the galaxy, billions watched the transmission as it spread. Elias continued, "We did not come for tribute. We did not come for glory. We came because someone had to. That is humanity's answer. When no one else stands, we will." The people erupted in cheers. Even the most doubtful of counselors bowed their heads. Children shouted the word human as if it meant salvation. Soldiers raised their weapons in salute. But the message reached far beyond travel, on Dominion. Worlds, citizens whispered angrily. Our fleets abandoned them, but the humans came. On Krath colonies, warriors gritted their teeth. The humans fought where we refused. They bled for strangers. Even within the Council of Stars, murmurs of shame spread. For the first time, the galaxy saw the empires not as saviors, but as cowards. and they saw humanity as something different. News networks replayed the footage of the battle. Clips of human soldiers standing against the swarm spread across every world. Stories of Sacrifice the Soldier who died dragging a beast into the fire. The engineer who welded a breach with his bare hands were told and retold until they became legend. On Travel, a monument was raised. Not to the empires, not to their own council, but to the strangers who had come when no one else did. At its base was carved a single phrase: when no empire answered, humanity did. The swarm was not gone forever. Everyone knew they would return. But the people of Travel were no longer broken. They had seen what it meant to fight with humanity at their side, and they would never be the same. In the council chamber, Chancellor Vera turned to Captain Elias. "Why?" she asked. "Why? Come for us when we offered you nothing." Elias's eyes were cold, his voice quiet. "Because once no one came for us. We swore it would never happen again." He turned away, walking back toward his ship. His soldiers followed, silent and steady. They had not come to be heroes. They had come to answer a call. And now their work was done. The Resolute lifted into the sky, its engines thundering. The people of Travel watched as it rose into orbit, a scarred shadow against the stars. Then, with a flash of light, it was gone, but its message remained. Across the galaxy, the story spread. A world cried for aid. The empires ignored it. And humanity answered. The legend of Earth grew. No longer were they seen as weak or unimportant. No longer were they dismissed as children among giants. Now there was something else, something the galaxy would never forget. Humanity had given its answer, and every empire, every soldier, every citizen knew the truth. The next time a cry for help echoed in the void, Earth would hear it. And when humanity came, the galaxy would tremble.